Climate change is an issue that affects the entire world, yet is still something that is argued about. Whether it's how much of an effect it has on us and our everyday life, or if it's something that even exists. There are always going to be people who are debating the topic and every aspect of it. The current and forefront problem regarding climate change is how much the issue has become politicized, which is something that was made apparent in the film Don't Look Up. In this video essay, I will discuss how and why climate change has become a political issue and how I believe Don't Look Up brings attention to the problem. Climate change was first discovered in the early 19th century by a Swedish scientist named Svante Arrhenius, but it wasn't popularized until 1988 when James Hansen testified to Congress about global warming and the danger it imposed. Throughout the following years, climate change continued to become a more discussed topic, which led to arguably its most talked about year in 2016, which laid the groundwork for the film Don't Look Up. During the 2016 election, global warming was a huge topic which headlined a lot of political campaigns and debates. Policies and beliefs about the topic shifted in the public view, creating a large divide in what America believed. According to a research article titled Global Warming and the U.S. Presidential Election, Spring 2016, written by Anthony Leiserowitz, with data provided from the Yale Program on Climate Change Conduction, it states, quote, with the exception of Ted Cruz voters, most supporters of the Democratic and Republican candidates think global warming is happening. Sanders, 93%, Clinton, 92%, Kasich, 71%, and Trump, 56%. By contrast, fewer than half of Ted Cruz supporters, 38%, think global warming is happening, end quote, Anthony Leiserowitz. There is a clear divide between the Democratic and Republican parties and their views on global warming. But why does this happen? The simple answer is the fossil fuel industry and the influence it has on American politics. To give an example, I'll go back to Ted Cruz, because according to an article titled The Dark Money of Climate Change, written by John Geary, Geary states, quote, Senator Ted Cruz of Texas has received $128,000 from oil and gas PACs alone, and $1,813,163 in total from the oil and gas industry, Center for Responsive Politics. Senator Cruz notably supported withdrawal from the Paris Climate Agreement, which directly allows fuel companies to increase their emissions, Campus Election Engagement Project, end quote. Geary. It's no secret that politicians use their power to influence and alter the results of bills, policies, and laws to help further their personal agendas. This blatant misuse of power that we see in American politics time and time again is no secret. But how does this all connect to Don't Look Up? Well, to start to understand that connection, we need to take a look at the director of the film, Adam McKay. Adam McKay began his directing career with comedy films like Anchorman, The Other Guys, and Step Brothers, which is a very different resume than what he has recently been working on. It is true that aspects of his old comedy carry over into his new work, which is what makes them so popular. But his newer films aren't all about just laughs. They have something to say. For example, we can take a look at two of his films, Vice and The Big Short. Both these films have comedic aspects but tackle real issues. The Big Short is about how Wall Street misuses their economic power to influence the market, specifically during the 2008 financial crash. According to The Big Short Themes, written by Michael Lewis, it states, quote, a paradox at the heart of The Big Short is the role of overconfidence on Wall Street. While traders have to project confidence in order to make big deals and get people to trust them, Wall Street's rampant overconfidence is part of what led to the financial collapse, end quote, Michael Lewis. Vice is about Dick Cheney, the former vice president, and it follows his misuse of political power. This misuse of political power connects to the message and themes in Don't Look Up very well. McKay's recent work is about using comedy to bring light to serious topics, but Don't Look Up is definitely his most profound work. The film follows Dr. Mindy, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, and Kate Diabosky, played by Jennifer Lawrence. In the film, Kate discovers a comet that is heading towards Earth and is supposed to make direct impact in 6 months. Together, Kate and Mindy attempt to bring attention to this catastrophic event by going to the president, news stations, and social media, but most people believe this is nothing to worry about or is just a hoax used to cause fear. The president, played by Meryl Streep, clearly doesn't believe in this and brushes the whole matter off until it becomes publicized in the media. This leads to the US attempting to destroy the comet with missiles, but at the last second, the mission is abandoned because a tech company CEO named Peter Isherwell, played by Mark Rylance, tells the president to call it off because he has plans to use the comet for its resources and to make financial gain. The film ultimately ends with the CEO's plan failing and Earth being destroyed as a result of his greed and ignorance. Adam McKay is a very vocal person in what he believes in. During an interview with Sasha Pfeiffer from NPR titled, Adam McKay Talks New Doomsday Satire Movie, Don't Look Up, Sasha asks, quote, Adam, you have a long and varied body of work. What made you want to write this particular movie? End quote. And in response, McKay says, quote, it really came from much like Jen and Leo's characters in the movie, their emotional state once they discover a comet is headed directly at Earth. It sort of mirrors how I've been feeling the past, 5, 10, to some degrees 15 years about the climate crisis, as I see it keep getting worse and worse and speeding up. And it used to be it was 100 years from now, then it was 80, then it was 50, and now we're hearing we may only have 10 years. And it's been quite the experience to live in a society that still bombs along like everything is A-OK, while the greatest threat to life and human history is before us. So that's both horrifying and, if you think about it, kind of funny too. End quote. McKay is very passionate about the work he creates, and it shows in this film. The most apparent part of this movie is the many metaphors for real life that are present in it. Just to start, we can look at the obvious one, which is that President Orlean is this world's Donald Trump. Between the mannerism and acting of Meryl Streep in this role, it is never clearly stated, but it is heavily implied she took inspiration from Trump for this role. Later in the film, President Orlean starts chanting her new slogan, Don't Look Up, in response to the comet being overhead, but she is telling her supporters to ignore and just pretend it's not there. This ideology is something that is very apparent in Trump's political campaign, as he has been very against the science of not just climate change, but also the COVID-19 pandemic. According to an article titled Politics vs. Science, How President Trump's War on Science Impacted Public Health and Environmental Regulation, written by Romany M. Webb and Lauren Kurtz, it states, quote, during his campaign for president, Joe Biden vowed to end the politics and follow the science when dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic and other public health and environmental crises. He was immediately criticized by then-President Trump, who cast listening to the scientists as something only a fool would do, and warned that it would result in a massive economic depression. It is hardly surprising that Trump would take that position. After all, the Trump administration routinely prioritized economic interest and worked tirelessly to remove what it viewed as unnecessary regulatory burdens on economic activity. The Trump administration regularly suppressed, downplayed, or simply ignored scientific research demonstrating the need for regulation to protect public health and the environment. End quote. Webb Kurtz. More metaphors of today's society can be found in the character of Peter Isherwell as an example of billionaires and CEOs of modern-day industries and conglomerates. Peter's motivations are also an example of how these industries prioritize economic success over the environmental safety cost of operating. There are many symbolic characters and metaphors of today's modern climate problems, but the question still remains, does Don't Look Up do a good job of tackling these issues and bringing awareness to them? Feedback online is very mixed, but the one constant complaint is that criticisms of the Republican Party are too in the audience's faces and pretentious. According to an article titled Don't Look Up Makes One Critical Mistake, written by Holly Thomas, she states, quote, as well-intentioned as the writers and cast of Don't Look Up undoubtedly are, the goal of defending scientific fact must be disassociated from that asserting moral superiority. The constant implication that those who hesitate to accept fresh evidence, be that of the safety of vaccines or the comet's impact, are stupid, corrupt, and hail from the wrong side politically, only adds another hurdle for science to overcome. End quote. Holly Thomas. Now, this is an opinion I can understand, because at times there are some very one-sided jokes or opinions that definitely attempt to put down the Republican Party and put them in a negative light. However, I believe that the reason McKay chose to portray these messages and themes in such an extreme way is because of the topic at hand, that being climate change, and how there is simply no more time to be worried about the right and wrong, and it's time to start focusing on the truth. And that truth is that global warming is happening, and it is continuously being worsened by the actions of mankind, and is further being enforced by the negligence present in our political system that is more concerned with our economic status than the very planet we live on. Many Americans and politicians are choosing to focus on the current issues at hand and are pushing away the distant ones. In an article titled Climate 2024, Why We Aren't Talking About Climate Change and Why That Matters, written by Olivia Miltner, there's a quote from Sienna Howard, which states, quote, "For constituents, I think the lack of focus on climate action can be explained by concerns that many Americans are unable to meet their basic needs right now. Voters may view climate change as a problem to be dealt with in the future, especially if they have not been personally impacted by it yet." End quote. Howard. The important part of this quote is the word yet, and that people believe climate change will not be affecting them when in reality it already is. Every year that passes, climate change progressively leads to more damage to our Earth, which is rapidly becoming irreversible. Don't Look Up attempted to bring awareness to this issue by getting people mad so that the issue could finally get some long-awaited publicity, considering the media has not been talking about it as much lately. Don't Look Up takes the fact that climate change is an issue that will continue to endanger our planet and will become irreversible unless the people finally make some noise and attempt to change the way our world views the problem. And these are the sources that were referenced in the video and were used to give me background knowledge on the topic.